Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Delusional podcast hosted by LaTerra Wair. This is a trigger warning for anyone. The episode is going to talk about sensitive topics, and I don't want to offend anyone, so there's that. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that you guys are having a good week. We are in another week. I feel like the year is like racing by. We're literally in July now. And that's kind of crazy, but happy second half of the year. I know we were just talking about that. I'm kind of getting my weeks a little mixed up, hopping right into it like we love to do, right? Do you ever question what your purpose is in life? I'm gonna just start real heavy. Last night I was trying to go to sleep, and this is why I gave the trigger warning, because I think I'm about to talk about something that can be very depressive in a way, and I don't want to set anyone off or send anyone off, but these are legitly just my thoughts. Like, this is what goes on in my head, and I'm not gonna be upset or apologize for that, because that's literally just what that is. Last night, so before that, I was thinking about this episode and how I kind of just wanted to talk about like people's purpose and everything like that in life, and it's something that I think about very often, very, very often. This is something that I think about, and I don't know necessarily like what in a purpose I think about, but I just think about like purpose in general, I guess. What is purpose? What is my purpose? What is everyone's purpose? So to dive more so into that, last night I was sitting there trying to go to sleep, because I had to get up super early so I can do everything that I need to do today. I was sitting there and just laying there, and I got really sad, really, really sad for a second. I didn't know what was going on. I'm doing my little prayer thing and all this kind of stuff. And then I just really started thinking about when people pass away. I think that passing away is a natural order of things. And that's something that earlier this year I was really struggling with. Not saying anyone around me has passed or anything like that, and God willing, no time soon. I think it was just something that I've really been struggling with, and just struggling with the idea of mortality and just itself, right? I think that when you're little, or for me, let me speak on my own personal experience. When I was little and I conceptualized things passing or things like death, it was more so in the idea of plants and flowers and, grass and stuff like that. Something dies, but it will come back to life. And I think that I didn't take it a step further in my brain, understanding that the thing that has passed is not the thing that regrows that you see, And so with people, a person will pass, and there's always more people being made, but it's never that person. And I think that that's crazy. And I only think that that's crazy because no one knows for certain what is next. And no matter if you believe in faith, if you don't believe in faith, whatever that is, no one knows 100% what's certain. Some people think that it's just the lights will go out and you will just be unconscious again like you were before. Some people believe that you will go to a place. Some people don't know. And with being more so involved spiritually and stuff like that within myself lately, and just trying to really think about what I think and how I feel and everything, I'm kind of not in one of those spaces of I don't know, but in the space of I don't necessarily need to know, right? I don't need to know where necessarily, but it's hard for me to conceptualize that I don't know if there is the thing. And that's the faith aspect of it, And I think that's the best way for me to put that. So from that, I was sitting there thinking about that basically. And then when I was thinking about that, that led me into thinking about just what are people here for? If it's crazy to think that there was a time when no one existed and everything. And I think that that is something that pushes my brain into the thought that like I live in a simulation in a way. And like, I know this sounds really crazy and I don't need the people attacking me for saying that, but sometimes it does feel in a way like it's a simulated reality, because you know those things where they're like, you don't know how you got here and everything like that. And like, I understand that there is like history and like books and stuff like that, but also too, have you guys ever thought about how something is only real to you because you've been told it your whole life? If you were told something completely different your whole life, you would have a different set of reality. Kind of like someone explained it to me. If my whole life, I grew up thinking that the sky is blue, right? Because someone told me that that color that I see is blue, so I will now identify that as blue the rest of my life. But if Susie grew up and Susie, they told her that the sky is green, she's going to think the sky is green her whole life. You know what I mean? Because she thinks that is green. So then I think to myself, with that same kind of premise based in like reality and life, and being like, I don't know what life is. I only know what I've been told that life is. And so I think from that, when I started to think about that, I started to think then, like, no one has ever told me like my purpose in life, because I don't think anyone can tell you your purpose in life. I think that you have to figure that out. But in figuring that out, I think that there's a bigger conversation that I am trying to have with myself, I guess, because this all sounds real tangent like. I'm so sorry, but I hope this is making sense. I feel as if your purpose kind of depends on the end, right? Everything depends on the end. I know people say it's about the journey and this and that, but I don't necessarily always agree with that, because I think that I talked to one of my coworkers about this, and we were talking about religion is something that keeps a lot of people being good people, because they are scared to go to a place that's really bad in the end for bad behaviors. So if there was nothing in the end, what would steer you away from being a bad person? I do understand there are good people, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not someone who does stuff because I want something good to happen at the end. I just do good things because I feel like I should do good things, and because I want to be a good person, and that makes me feel like a good person, right? Everybody is not like that. And in reality, I think that we have to think like everyone isn't like that. So the thing that I feel like keeps these people being good people, some of these people, is just the thought of like the end and how you base your journey on what you want at the end of something, right? You base every journey on what you want to see at the end. Like, even like fitness, for example, I made a whole fitness plan for myself and like what I want on my workouts to be, because I want to have a ideal shape at the end and I want to feel an ideal way. So I'm basing it on the end. So I say all this to say, in the most crazy, long-winded way, I am having such a hard time right now with a lot of stuff, because sometimes I just sit back at night and I just think like, what is the purpose? Like, what am I supposed to be here for? That's something that I think plagues my brain all the time, is like what people are supposed to be here for. And that makes me think about like my purpose and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people tell me that your purpose is what you make your purpose to be, right? And I do get that. Like, I think that you do have to give yourself purpose in life, because no one is going to tell you what your purpose is. And I think you more so like find it along the way, and in the journey, that's the good part, the fun part, you know? But I think that it's just so crazy to me sometimes to just sit there and think like, what the fuck is my purpose? You know, I'm not someone who has kids and stuff like this, but I think that even if I had children, I very much identify with like those moms and stuff who get lost when they feel like their entire purpose is supposed to be from their kids. Because feeling how I feel right now, it's the exact same way. I just don't have 3 people that I also have to take care of. And then it kind of feels like my purpose is just shifted into being a mother, but like you're a person, you know? And that's the thing, is that we're people, but also like, I don't want to be an individual person in my life forever. You know, I would love to share life with people and to fellowship and to be happy and to have friends in the end, to get there in the end, you know, like in the end is the important part of the whole thing. I don't know. I've just really been sitting here and been thinking about that. And like, purpose is one of those things that's so crazy. Like, what do you guys think is your purpose? I guess maybe if someone could explain that to me, like what they think their purpose is and why you think that's your purpose. And like, how did you get to that conclusion? I just don't know how I'm going to get to the conclusion, because I do think that your purpose changes throughout life. But two, I just think like with all the stuff that's going on, at least here, right? And I'm not going to get super into detail or anything like that. But with all this stuff going on and the media that's being pushed out and stuff like that, I just think like, is this what we're here to do? Like, are we here to just experiment and to see how far people are going to take things and how far people are going to like treat people, whether that be good or bad? But then like when the clock stops, because like I sit there and think about that too. Like when the clock fucking stops, what happens? And maybe this is me having an existential crisis on here with you guys. But like, do y'all ever sit back and think about that? Like when everything is said and done, and when our sun explodes, like it's gonna explode in millions of billions of years, or that's what they say. Cause I always think that too. Like everything is only an estimate. If these things were here longer than we've been here, we don't really know how long these things have been here. And people say that the sun is gonna, you know, explode in a very long time from now and all this kind of stuff. And they can look at like the health of it and all this. But like, is that true? Like, I think if the sun was to blow up tomorrow, what was all of this for? And that's the stuff that is literally just like, that's the gnat in the room. That's the gnat in my ear. Like if the sun was to blow up tomorrow, what was all of this for? In that truly, because that's something that I just constantly like think about, I always am trying to make sure that I'm the happiest that I can possibly be. Like the happiest that I can possibly be, and that I'm doing everything right, because I don't know what's next. And I think it's very crazy to think that when you're done, you're just done. Like I am someone who does believe that energy is recycled through life, right? If you know me, or if you've ever seen my recycling tattoo on my neck, that's literally what it's all about. Is I do believe that energy is recycled through the ether, through the universe. Right? I think that people are just like these beings and have these souls and these feelings and everything that you can't like explain. You can't, I feel like, explain someone's soul. Like I don't understand. I get I'm a living, breathing organism and stuff like that, but I think that a conscience is something that's so beautiful, and it's so like, I can't just believe that everyone's conscience just like goes off forever and there's nothing. Like I feel like even if you're not conscious enough to see what is happening, that there are still things that are going on. Or like whenever you get here to the planet that, you know, we live on, or you get into this space that we understand to be life right now, a lot of that has like kind of sparked me into thinking a lot about like faith lately. And me personally, I'm someone who I'm very solid in believing what I believe in, and I'm always open to hearing people out and hearing different things out. I don't believe that anyone should be bullied or persecuted for their faith, because that is not another person's business. I need to make that very clear. And I'm not with the slander of, long as they are not harmful, they are not harmful to people. I say that because I don't agree with everything that has happened in the name of faith. And I do understand that a lot of people say that they do hateful things in inspired by their faith, and I don't believe in that. Yeah, I don't think you should ever be harmful to another person because they believe how they believe, especially if they're not hurting anyone. I think that's just crazy. Something I really came to terms with when I thought about why I believed in faith is just because I truly do not believe that I can be here and live here and exist here in this world by myself. That is very main character of me to think, if I were to have thought that. And if that is what you think and believe, like, you know, that's perfectly fine. And I only say that because when I talk to people who have no kind of like spiritual belief or anything, my biggest thing always is, I think that's cool, right? If that's how you feel, I think that's perfectly fine. I just want to know what they think more so about, like, how do you think you got here? How do you think that, you know, do people just think we just woke up here and people kept having babies and everything? Because, yeah, like, that's true physically for sure. But I think that a spirit and a personality and the way that there's so many different types of people, that's just very crazy to think that we're just here by ourselves. Not on no suicidal ish or anything, and I always have to say that, but I want to know how we got here. I want to know why we're here. I want to know what a soul is, what a spirit is. I want to know what that feeling is when you feel so moved by something. You know what I mean? There's so many things and feelings and emotions, and they're not physically happening. I think that's the thing, is like, it's never physically happening. It's very much so like internal type of situation or internal type of feeling. I want to know what that is from. And I feel like if I knew, then that would just help me very much so solidify like a purpose. But I think that you're not supposed to know. I think that that's a part of like the game that you get to play that we call life. I don't think, my little brother told me that he went through this phase of just kind of thinking about life, and he's been opening up a lot more with his thoughts and stuff, and it makes me think like, oh, you're really like me for real, or like I'm really like you for real, or like these thoughts are normal. That's more so why I wanted to come on here and talk about this, because my brain a lot, and not in any type of sad way, and I never want it to come off in a sad way, because I'm fine, right? I think that that's just the nature of my brain. It's real inquisitive, and I'm just so intrigued, I think, by life. Truly, I think that this is one of the first times that I've actually enjoyed a lot of facets of my life. And I really just have understood when people are kind of like, you know, when older people are maybe like 70, 80, and they're like, that just wasn't long enough. And like, no, I feel that. I always say, or I'm 25 and I feel like I've been alive forever. I feel like I've lived so many lives, but I also feel like I just started and I don't want to stop anytime soon. You know, I'm in that weird in-between space for real. Like, I really did just start. I don't want to stop anytime soon. And I don't think there is necessarily a stopping anytime soon. I think that it's just kind of a keep going maybe. And I don't know how to explain that. I guess like maybe in another episode, we'll get into all the theories and wormholes of life. Let me know if you guys would be interested in that. Back to what I was saying, I was talking to my brother about it, and he told me how he went through this whole thing one time when he was just spending a lot more time by himself. And I think that that's also something that like triggered it for me, is when I started spending more time by myself, I just had a lot more time to think about life. And what a beauty, right? What a joy, what a luxury that is, to be able to have time to sit down and really think about the ins and outs of life. And, you know, I think that's great. I really have been thinking about lately, and just thinking about like the purpose and everything, and thinking about my push, because guys, I want so much out of life. I want so much, and I will have so much in this life. Not necessarily like financially or physically, that's not what I'm meaning. But I mean like everything that I seek to have, I do want to have, and I wish to have, and I think that it's possible. And I think that that is a part of your purpose in life, is that you get to go after everything that you want. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have figured out your purpose, or if you're in the middle of trying to figure it out, if you've ever even thought about it, because honestly, it hasn't hit a lot of people, I feel like, and that's such a gift in itself. Like, navigating throughout life, just doing as you please, I guess, or just not being bogged down by the thoughts of what's important and what's not important. It's so freeing. It's so fun. It's great, to be very honest with you. And don't give that up for anything. That's how I feel about that. But there was nothing too graphic that I said or anything like that, but I did just want to, like I said, say a little trigger kind of thing in the beginning, only because I never want to be talking about something sad that is in my brain or that my head is going through and then force that on someone else to be thinking about. I don't really think that that's fair. I'm always going to let you guys know if there's anything super sad that we're going to get into or talk about, if I know ahead of time. Getting into the You're Delusional topic. The You're Delusional topic, we are going to talk about the concept of fate versus free will. So the topic was basically brought about because there's a lot of people who go back and forth on this, right? I'm someone who believes in the both. So I think that's why this could be a little delusional sounding for the people who were asking me or we were talking about this. I do believe that there are things that are written out in fate, right? I think that the start and the end is pretty much written, but I do think that you are allowed choices throughout life, but there are fixed moments, if that makes sense. I think that you don't know which moments are fixed and which moments aren't fixed, and the moments that you may think are the super important ones aren't necessarily always the super important ones. But that's kind of how I feel on the topic. If you've ever watched Supernatural, there's this scene in, I believe, season 14 where Billy has now become like death, like the Grim Reaper death. And then she's showing Sam the kind of the way that fate works. And basically the way that they explain it is there's like a library full of books, and in the books it tells you every single way a person's gonna die. So if the character Sam was gonna be killed by Rowena, which is the example that they gave, he will only die in these 7 ways if this is who he's going to be killed by. If it does not happen like this, she will not be the person to kill him to end his life. But then on this shelf, there's also like 1,000 other books, meaning that there are so many different ways that things can play out. They're all kind of dependent on your choices at a moment or on someone else's choices at a moment. And then that is how you pass or whatever moment is happening next that we're talking about. I don't know. I don't think it's delusional to believe in one side or the other. I definitely can see both sides of it, you know, even when people bring it to like a faith aspect. A lot of people like to say kind of, why would your creator just put you here and then have everything kind of picked out, because it seems like robotic. So the more logical thing for them would be to think that the creator is a person who gave you free will to make choices and they just gave you the life. I don't know. I see it both ways, but let me know what you guys think about that. Do you think it is delusional to believe in one or the other, or a mix of both? Or what are your thoughts about the concept of fate versus free will? Moving forward though, we are going to get into our What We Watchin' segment. The What We Watchin' is basically where I tell you guys about what I'm watching, you tell me about what you're watching, and we just talk a little bit. Yesterday, The Old Guard 2 came out. If you don't know what The Old Guard is, it is basically a movie that follows a group of immortals through a mission that they go on at first, and then it tells kind of the story about this newly found immortal and her journey with the group. That's what The Old Guard is. And then at the end, it leaves you on kind of like this cliffhanger. The last movie came out, I think, in like 2021, 2022, something like that. But it's been a while, right? And I also found the movie super late, and I was like, dang, they're only making one of them? That's actually freaking crazy. And then I heard they were making The Old Guard 2. So The Old Guard 2 is basically about the same group of immortals plus an immortal named Quinn, who they briefly talked about at the beginning or during the entire first Old Guard movie. And Quinn is Andy's partner. They had this real messed up scene that this isn't a spoiler because it's in the first one, but they basically like locked her in this metal casket contraption and then they threw her at the bottom of the ocean. But since she's immortal, she's just been coming back to life, dying, coming back to life, dying, coming back to life, dying. Her Andromache, which is Andy in the movie, she basically told Quinn that she's always gonna find her and everything like that. And so the movie just talks about Quinn's relationship with Andromache when she comes back, a new group of characters and everything like that. You get to understand a little bit more of the Immortals story, which is like kind of cool. You get some lore. I will say overall, I'm disappointed in the movie. It is something that I've been looking forward to ever since I watched the first one. And I thought that since there's such a big gap in time between the time they made the first one and they made the second one, it was going to be really, really good, but that's not really how I feel like it turned out. I think it wasn't bad or anything like that. I think I was just looking for more in the story, and I also didn't like the way it ended, but the ending is very promising for the future. So that's that. I really love the two characters. My favorite couple, Nikki and Yusuf. They are freaking amazing. They make me want to believe in love. They make me think that love is something that is real. It exists. They have a really cool story. I think that if they were ever to do like a spinoff of The Old Guard, I would really hope that they would do a spotlight on their story specifically. I think that's such a beautiful thing, and I think it'd be a great market, to be very honest with you. If you ever watched the first Old Guard, I think that you would enjoy this one. It's very much same pace. I think that scenes could have like taken a little more time. I think that the actual making of the movie, very beautiful movie. The color grading is top tier. I think all the little small details and stuff to make the story feel real, feel very real. There's a scene where Andy is walking through this passageway, and the way that they illustrate the time changes and everything like that have happened in her life up till the point she's in right now was very beautifully done. So I think the movie's great in those aspects. The story just wasn't my favorite in this movie, but hopefully it's building to something better and we won't have to wait another 3 years for another movie to come out if they're going to make another movie. That is what I'm watching lately. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the You're Delusional podcast. Please be sure to rate our podcast if you're an audio listener on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And then if you are watching, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave us some comments down in the comment sections on all of our platforms. And if you're interested in more about the podcast, more behind the scenes, anything like that, follow our production company at LT Legacy Productions. And thank you guys for yapping with me. I will see you next week. Bye. Your Delusional podcast is produced by LT Legacy Productions and hosted by LaTerra Wair.